What's up, Port City? This is Zach Boschman checking in from Dub City Heartbeat headquarters over here. On this episode of A Real Dialogue, I was fortunate enough to talk with Reverend Dierdre Parker. Now, I don't know if you remember, but Reverend Dierdre was in the news probably a couple months ago at this point. She received a letter, a very hateful letter in the mail to her church. It involved the N-word. It was multiple pages, very, very racist letter. So I had the privilege to chop it up with her following receiving that letter, and I asked her how she felt about the wave of support she got, and also about some of the more deep, everyday, systemic instances of racism and injustice here in the Port City. I feel like people often come and give a lot of support when there is, those blatant prejudice, instances of racism. We saw lots of support in Charlottesville, but, how does she feel about sort of the legacy of white supremacy here in the Port City and how that plays out today with interactions, with police or mass incarceration, our war on drugs here. So I was very happy, very lucky to talk to the Reverend. I hope you enjoy it. Please leave some comments, join the discussion. Thank you so much. As always, don't forget to hit like, hit subscribe. Let me know what you thought. What's up, Port City? This is Zach Boschman checking in, and we are so stoked because this week we have Reverend Dierdre Parker on the show on A Real Dialogue. Thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thank you for asking me.
Yeah. Could you please just start, by telling us a little bit about the letter that you received at the church?
The letter, it was so weird because I'd had a very unsettling experience the day before with a census taker that I had to ask to leave my house. So when I got to church, my church clerk said, "We got a really crazy letter." And I began to read the letter, and I thought that it was a joke at first. I was sure that at the end it was going to say something like, "Nah, just kidding," or whatever. Mm-hmm. But it was some of the most vitriolic stereotypes that you could imagine. Mm-hmm. Just ugly words, ugly names, and I only posted on Facebook only half of the letter. The last part was really even worse, so I just decided not to do that. And of course, the N-word was used, and just descriptions which are really just hateful. Mm-hmm. Hateful.
Is this the first time that you've encountered some, blatant vitriolic racism like that as a pastor? As a pastor,
yes. Mm-hmm. This is the first time. As a human being living in this melaninated skin, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. It's unfortunately, even though I was shocked, I wasn't surprised. Mm-hmm. I wasn't surprised at all. It is something that people of color have learned to live with. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, and it's really unfortunate that that's something that we've learned to live with.
So there's obviously been it seems to me, a large outpouring of support after people, that letter circulated mm-hmm. on social media and through the news networks. Do you feel as though sometimes people, do you feel as though a lot of the people that, showed support in that situation, that they paid attention to that blatant racism, but aren't always acknowledging, the signs of racism every day,
Yeah,
systemic
absolutely.
injustices.
I think that when it's blatant like that, they have no choice but to acknowledge it. And don't get me wrong, I am so grateful for the outpouring of love and support.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really given me an opportunity to to start to build some relationships and to have conversations. But as I was telling the people that came to my church that next Sunday, when you see something, say something.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just ignore it. It's okay to go about your everyday life. I'm not saying that everybody has to march and all that kind of stuff, but I'm saying if you're sitting in a restaurant and you see that the black couple next to you who got there before you hasn't even gotten their appetizer and you're paying your check, then you've got to say something. How can you not? I mean, as human beings, right is right. It doesn't matter. I think some people say, well, that's not my problem, that's not my fight, or they're just seeking attention. It's not that bad, it's just an isolated incident. No, it's not. It's pervasive. Every single day, I am reminded in this country that I am other. Every single day, with things as simple as Band-Aids.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it. You see the color of a Band-Aid. It's designed to blend in, but not on this brown skin. It doesn't blend in. So it's little things like that. The normalization of whiteness makes everything else otherness, and then it's kind of simple to kind of turn your head because it doesn't affect you.
Mm-hmm.
If it doesn't affect you, you can tell yourself that it doesn't exist. And that was my purpose in posting the letter on Facebook. It was just for me. It was just to post it on Facebook so that some of my friends, some of the people on my friends list can stop saying this doesn't happen anymore, because it does.
Yeah. What do you think about the state of, I want to bring it back to the church, but just I'm wondering right now, what do you think? I know you said you're from Southport, and you went to UNCW.
Yes.
What do you think about the state of race relations in Wilmington?
Well, I think that the state of race relations in Wilmington is compounded by the history of 1898. Mm-hmm. I think that in the entire country, things are very tense. I think that people who are hateful and act out in ways that are racist have been emboldened. They feel like it's acceptable, and it is compounded in this area. It's compounded in cities where you have Confederate monuments, because if you look at the history of when they were built and why they were built, they symbolize something. They are reminders. They are not reminders of heritage and history. They are reminders of, and there's one that even points, you stay in your place. That's what those monuments are.
Yeah. That George Davis one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. If you look, I recently found a program of when they the dedication ceremony when they put that out, and a lot of the people that were there were major players in the massacre.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But that's the part of the history that people don't want to look at. They want to say heritage, not hate. But it is a hateful heritage. Mm-hmm. That's what it is. And denying it doesn't change the truth of it, the truth is what it is regardless. If I don't accept something that's true, that does not change the validity of its truth.
Mm-hmm. So as a leader of your church, and you have all those people, kind of looking up to you, after receiving that letter, that following Sunday, what was sort of your thought process, and what was it like, I guess, to feel like you really had to, take that role? And
yeah, this is not what I would have chosen.
Yeah.
for myself. This is not the fight that I would have chosen. I would have been satisfied to just, talk to the people around me, people who look like me, about the situation and keep it moving. But that's not the plan that God had for my life. And so I knew that Sunday, because I had been getting emails, inboxes, phone calls, everything, that there were going to be a lot of white people at my church that Sunday. And so I felt like this is my opportunity to help shed some light on some situations. Mm-hmm. And that's where the "if you see something, say something" came from. Mm-hmm. I told a lot of stories about personal incidences. I told about things that I'd read that other people had gone mm-hmm. through, because I think that when it's humanized, because I know to some people I was just another issue. Mm-hmm. Just another race baiter. I hate that term. Still don't really understand what it means. But I was just an issue. But to those people that came to my church that Sunday, they realized that I'm just a person, just like them. And then they were willing to listen. And I started out, and I did it on purpose. I started out by saying, dinosaurs aren't real. I don't care what you say. You cannot convince me that dinosaurs are real. I don't care how much science there is behind it. I don't care how many archaeologists or paleontologists or whoever it is say that dinosaurs exist. Have you ever seen a dinosaur? I say they don't exist. And they were looking at me like, and then I said, I bet you guys are thinking this chick must have lost her mind. But that's exactly how people who feel that racism doesn't exist, that's exactly how they sound. Because they've never seen it, they've never experienced it, therefore it can't possibly be real.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good analogy.
Thank you.
I think to, help people understand that perspective. So, in your opinion, how do we move to keep this wave of support going? Because to me, I worry about the future of the black community in this city every day. District Attorney Ben David, for example, just increased the bail for heroin dealers to $1 million. I'm not saying that there's a certain propensity for a black person to be a drug dealer over a white person, but the situation is like he's taking this approach of, if you're a user, then let's rehabilitate you. Let's not get you in a legal trouble.
Exactly.
And there's sort of this double standard going on, right, for the dealer and the user, but there wouldn't be a dealer if there weren't a user. And oftentimes, if people have a choice, they're not like, should I be an accountant or do I want to sell heroin?
Exactly.
So we have that going on here. I think that there's a lot of situations where police go into black neighborhoods like the one that I live in, and they don't really understand the culture there. There's resegregated schools in New Hanover County. There's gentrification going on and the affordable housing crisis. I'm sure you know about all these things going on, but how do we get these people that really want to support to understand that letter is just the blatant kind of tip of the iceberg?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think it starts with conversation.
Yeah.
It starts with having the hard conversations. The hard conversations will get easier the more that we have them. And then that's how we begin to build relationships. Mm-hmm. Relationships then lead to friendships. And I think that it is incumbent upon the faith community to lead the way. If we are who we say we are, if we really are called to love and forgive, then it has to start with us. Mm-hmm. We have to be the ones to reach out and get to know people and have dinner with people that we've never had dinner with before and have the hard conversations. But the other thing I think is that white people have to learn to just listen to our experiences. When I'm telling you what I've gone through, don't interrupt me telling you to explain to me why that person may have done that, or to tell me that there has to be more to the story. Because I will be 55 years old next week, and I've been dealing with this all my life. It's not new. But the only thing that's going to change it is when we come together honestly and talk about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really awesome. I think it's really important that listening is so important, because I think white people, we have a tendency to want to project our personal narrative on things, and the way that the culture is dominated, like, white people often get the platform a lot more. Yeah.
And I think it's also understanding the difference between bigotry and racism.
Mm-hmm.
Bigotry is based on things like the letter.
Yeah.
Racism is the things like the court system and all these different systems that are in place in the very fabric of our Constitution. There's the 3/5 compromise. There's the Dred Scott case. There's Plessy versus Ferguson. All of these things were designed to keep people of color, specifically people of African descent, from enjoying full citizenship.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to acknowledge that. Some people don't even realize how all of that is related. Because it's not taught in schools. That's not a part of American history. That's why there's a need for Black history. And at my church, we have, every Sunday, we have a Black History moment. And as much as I think I know, every Sunday I learn something different. Mm-hmm. Because these are stories that simply are not told in the mainstream.
How does it work? It's a Black History moment?
We have a Black History moment every Sunday. And it could be just about whatever, something that we don't know. Katherine Johnson, there's a young girl who actually started a company making lemonade, and now her lemonade is in Whole Foods and different stores like that. And I think she started that when she was 9, and that's amazing.
Yeah.
But everybody doesn't know that there's a young girl who also started an Afro Puff wearing superhero series of books. And so these things are important. It's important to, one of the things in that letter that I did not mention because it was on the second part of the letter, it says that Black people, it didn't say Black people use the N-word, have never contributed anything to society. And that's simply not true. No. If you're using a broom and a dustpan, if you're using an iron, if you're stopping at a traffic light, these are inventions created by Black people at the time, couldn't hold patents, but still created these things. And other people capitalized off of them. But to say that we've never contributed anything to society is obviously someone who is just clueless and just doesn't know.
Yeah, that's funny. That's like a conversation my friends and I have a lot. It's like, I think that African American culture is one of the most influential cultures throughout the globe. Like, anything that we consider cool, these days, was born out of the Black community.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it is out of necessity. It is out of a will to survive. Because when you are constantly dealing with these microaggressions on a daily basis, I'll give you an example. I went to an orientation, and when I walked in the door, the HR person who was in charge said, "Oh, you must be Tamika." And I'm like, "No, I'm Dierdre." "Oh, okay." And like it was no big deal. But you assumed because you saw a list of names on a sheet of paper that I would be named Tamika. And it's little things like that. I'd like to have some guacamole on that. You know it's 75 cents extra. Yes, I can read. Thank you very much. Assuming
Yeah.
that it's going to be a problem, assuming that when I hand you my credit card, it's not going to go through. And I deal with these things every single day. And I can see the looks in people's eyes. And when people come into this, the census lady I was talking about, she came in here and she was like, oh, this is nice. Like she was surprised. And this is the thing that people already have. Implicit bias exists. People have already made up their minds about me before they've ever heard me speak because of the way that I look.
Yeah, as one of my best friends was just telling me about how like his parents' decision to name him Joseph, and like how that factors in that way too, and applications and stuff like
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because people are going to make assumptions about Tamika, just like somebody assumed that I was Tamika. When people see that on an application, and why? Why should you automatically make assumptions that Tamika is not going to be as qualified? Why would you make an assumption that Tamika's education is substandard when she's going to a college? Like, I graduated from UNCW.
Yeah. Yeah.
So why would you think that I, as a woman of color, would not be as intelligent as somebody else? I have a vast range of experience. I've been working since I was 13 years old. I've been in a lot of different industries, but a lot of people will not even see that about me because they'll see me or hear me on the phone. It's obvious that I'm a black woman when I talk. Yeah, I know that. I'm not ashamed of that. But when I call to talk to people about certain things, they're very dismissive. They make assumptions about me, and I really have to exercise every bit of patience that I have. Because like I said, I'm different now. There was a time when they would have got exactly what they wanted, and then they could say, see, I knew she was that way. But I'm not that anymore. I'm not angry about it. I just feel like I have a right. As much as I have contributed to this country, I served my country in the U.S. Army. I pay taxes, all of that. So why should I be treated any differently? Why should I go into a restaurant and have to wait longer to even have somebody come and ask me what drink I want? And then why should I have to wait to get my tea refilled? And why should I have to be the last one to get my food? There's been a couple of restaurants that I will not go to anymore because it's happened more than once at that particular restaurant. And I just won't go there anymore because the same dead presidents are on my money. So why should I be treated any differently? And then people always say, well, black people don't. This is what servers say. I have a friend who's a server. He tells me that. Black people don't tip. We tip in direct proportion to the level of customer service that we receive. If you give me 50 cents worth of customer service, that might be your tip. And why should I be treated any different?
Yeah.
Why should I be treated differently?
Should.
But yet it happens, and when something like that happens, there's always these justifications that are made. Well, the way she was talking to me, or her voice was so loud. I'm loud. It is just one of my spiritual gifts, loudness. It's in the Bible, look it up now. But I sang in Thalian Hall and Keenan Auditorium without a mic, and people never knew I didn't have a mic.
Yeah.
So when somebody says to me, well, you don't have to get loud, man. And I just say, sweetie, if I was getting loud, everybody in this building would be aware that I'm getting loud. But these are the assumptions that go along with this brown skin. And I have to deal with it every single day. And I'm tired.
So you said that you are different now. I don't even know how I would handle this if I, were black, if I had to deal with that every single day. What changed in you to get that sort of higher level, like patience, I guess? Is it just like, like growing, like, is it like a time type of thing eventually?
Spiritual growth.
Yeah.
It's really spiritual growth. You know, the fruits of the Spirit, one of the fruits of the Spirit is patience,
Mm-hmm.
long-suffering, self-control. And I believe that those are beginning to manifest in me. And that is the reason why people who've known me for a long time know I used to punch somebody in the face. I used to fight a lot. But it doesn't, neither violence nor silence has changed racism. So it's time to try something different. It's time to try conversation. It's time to try honesty. It's time to try listening to each other.
What would you say to a young person that's maybe in school and maybe they have a teacher that doesn't understand them, or maybe it's a student resource officer or something along those lines, or they just encounter this blatant racism, and like, what would you say to them to how to channel that energy?
What I have told them in the past is no matter how you try to keep your record clear, one moment left unguarded can mess up your whole career. As much as we don't like it, a resource officer, a teacher, they hold the key to your future because they can label you. And once you are labeled and once you are in the system, then people can totally disregard your intellect and everything else that goes along with you, your humanity. Mm-hmm. And so I caution them to think about, just stop and think for a minute. Mm-hmm. It's a hard thing to do because we all have emotions. We all want to be respected, all of those things. But there's a way to handle it. And listen, I'm not saying that we should all join hands and sing Kumbaya, saying we shall overcome and all of that. But you have to handle what you need to handle in a way that it will not end your life. Because let's be honest, one wrong move, and it could be somebody's life. So I say, do what you need to do to survive the situation. And when it is complete, follow the proper channels and keep telling somebody. Even if nobody listens, you keep telling until somebody listens. Because we all should be treated with dignity and respect. And sometimes you have to demand it.